Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Success is Not Convenient. This is where we're bringing you all sorts of ideas, topics, and interviews regarding the difficulty of what it takes to become successful in any type of business. Okay. So it doesn't really matter what business you're in. If you're going to achieve something at a really high level, this is going to take some time and you're going to go through a lot of adjustments and a lot of changes. And we are going to have to understand that we are going to have to put some things aside. Not everything is going to be, as they call, equal balance. If you're going to be successful in anything, you're going to have to sacrifice something. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to go ahead and be talking today about a few things that we can do to work on change, to change our bad habits into more productive habits. Now, changing our bad habits can be really hard to change. And why is that? It really comes down to our mindset and our awareness. And what I'm saying is, what is our mindset towards a situation? Because we can have a lot of skill, but if we don't have a right mindset, we're never going to develop the right skill, right? So we have to identify where our struggling points are, and then how do we then identify those, and then we make changes in those. So the first thing is to identify the trigger points and understand what causes the bad habit, right? Is it stress? Is it boredom? What is it for you that is preventing you from going forward? And be very specific. Have a clearly defined habit that you want to change. And the habit that you want to change, you need to replace it with a positive habit, with a habit that causes you to grow at the highest level possible, right? You must use your why power. Write down why changing this habit matters. So if you can, write down like maybe even why it's not working. Like, what is it not working for you in your life? Like, why are you wanting to make a change in your life? Write it down. Like, it's fun to write down things that you say, hey, this is not working or this is working for me in my life. But if you write down why it's not working, and then you really focus on why it's not working. Why isn't it working? Where in your life are things going south? Where in your life where you're not growing to the level that you want to grow to? So it's really identifying, like, why do I continue to use the excuse of not getting up in the morning and going to the gym, or when I get off of work, not going? Why do I use that as my excuse? Where in your life, like, why do you have a hard time getting to work on time? Or being committed towards something. So what is your why? And then write down why you think it's important to do it, right? Write down the changing and what the changing of the habit, why does it matter, right? Why does changing your behavior, why is that necessary? And that's a question you want to ask yourself is, why do I feel that this isn't working? This is what I want. What prevents me from getting there? The next thing I want you to kind of forgive yourself on, if I can say, is slip-ups. Don't let one mistake spiral you into a full relapse. You have to learn to reset yourself. So what's going to happen is you are always, through the process of learning to change your behavior pattern, you've lived with that behavior pattern for so long. Right? I don't, if you're 20, you might be 30, you might be 50, you might be 70, I'm not sure. But for however long you've been doing things, you've been doing it for that long. And it doesn't change overnight, which is why you want to identify it, talk about where it's hurting you, spend some time there, spend some time in why it's hurting you. And then when you go to make changes in your life, when you're really trying to focus in on being a better version of you, forgive yourself a little bit if you make a mistake. You don't have to do it 100% out of the gate. Nobody ever does anything 100% when they first start. It takes time. You're going to relapse back into who you were in time. Don't allow that to bring you down, okay? Understand that it's only going to take time for you to have a level of success, and you have to give yourself a break. So give yourself a break. Next, I want you to visualize your level of success. Spend a few minutes daily just imagining yourself acting out in a new habit. So kind of play this in your head and thinking about, like, if I actually did everything that I was supposed to be doing, if I actually did it, what do I think my life would actually be like? What kind of benefits would I think come from the result of acting out this new habit? where do I see this going for myself? And how do I feel that it's going to better myself? Part of me really believes that you have to buy into whatever story you're telling yourself, because you do buy into whatever story you're telling yourself. And you could be buying into the story of saying, gosh, you know what? I don't think it's really that necessary that I show up on time, because there's many people that I know that have this issue where they're late to everything. They're inconsiderate of other people's feelings. If that's you, we need to stop that, right? If that's important to you. I know it would be important to a lot of people like me if somebody says, hey, I'll be there at a certain time. I had a relationship, I still have a relationship with this particular company, where we were doing meetings occasionally to try to get the business on track and, make sure it was fitting really well within my businesses. And they were pretty normally late to these meetings. And this went on for a few different times. And in the last meeting I had with them, I said to them, guys, all of our times are important. And I get it that you're busy and so am I. But when we book a time, I only have so much time. And all you're doing is, if I booked a 30-minute or 45-minute meeting with you and you're 15 minutes late, you just robbed our growth of our company, because we aren't able to discuss the things that move us forward. So if that's a behavior problem that you have, just have some consideration for how the other side may look at it, and then what you could be robbing yourself of. But that's just one, right? There's other things in all of our lives that we can focus on and why we want to change, and what impact is that going to make, right? The next thing I want to talk about is habit stacking, right? Attach a new habit to something that you already do. So for instance, if you go to the gym, right, and you're working out for an hour, is there something else you can add within that same hour? So I'll give you an example, and I use this as an example because this is the best example I could come up with. And that is, if you're in the gym doing a weight exercise, what can you do in between that weight exercise, right? If you're doing cardio, what can you do? Like, what can you add in that you're not? If you're already doing it, right? If you're already at the gym working out, what can you do to get a little bit more in during the time you're at the gym? It's really fun, because I'll go to the gym and I'll see, probably, 50% of the people just standing around having conversations, and they're actually lifting weights, once every 5 minutes. Where I have a rule that I have to lift the weights about every 45 seconds to a minute. I have to be doing something. And so I get a lot more done. So habit stack, which means attach a new habit to something that you're already doing. If you're coming to work and you're here at 8 o'clock in the morning in your office at 8, and you're doing X, Y, and Z, what can you add more in there just to get things done quicker? Something that I've recently changed is I decided that I was going to stack everything I had to do to keep my normal job from 8 to 5, the things that I normally do throughout the day. I wanted to stack those meetings, those times, those conversations, and that process in from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I had to change from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or 1 o'clock, let's just say, all the way to 5 o'clock. So I had 4 hours that I then attached all of those things into every 15 to 20 minutes within my schedule. So I'm now getting all my work done for the company that needs to be done to keep the business running. I'm doing that from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So then what happens from, let's just call it 1:30-ish to 5? I then create new business opportunities and do lots of different things that I'm typically not doing. So finding ways to stack something new in what you're already doing gets you so much more productive. So next thing is use implementation intentions. Set a clear plan, like, if X happens, I will do Y. So what they're doing is you kind of a little bit rewarding yourself. So what you're doing, you're saying, if I do this and this and this, and this happens based on this result, how do I reward myself if I accomplish this goal? I'm a big reward person. And what I mean by that is, so I'll share with people that work in my company, the salespeople, especially the independent contracting salespeople. I'll say to them, listen, work for 90 days and then go take a week off. Work solid for 90 days and then give yourself the pat on the back and go and take a whole week off of work. Clear your mind, especially for salespeople, right? And if you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson. or you have a salesperson who you have to hire salespeople, so you're still a salesperson. And I think that rewarding people for the hard work that they do is critical for their long-term happiness and productivity within the company, right? So if you're doing an activity, for example, you reward yourself, you diet for, or you watch what you eat for 6 days, right? Take the 7th day and treat yourself to something. I particularly try to stay as healthy as I possibly can, but I have to treat myself occasionally, right? Because if not, then you feel like if I don't treat myself, I'm going to fall off, and I'm not going to be interested at all. So if that's a reward for you, that if you do this and this and this, you get to do this. Any activity that you have to have a reward for all of the hard work that you're putting in. That creates longevity in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Okay. The next thing I want to say is start ridiculously small. Don't set this crazy, audacious goal where you've never done something and now it's so big that it's overwhelming. It might be exciting, but it's also overwhelming, right? Don't make it so big that you're overwhelmed, but make it so small. Instead of like saying, hey, I'm going to journal every single day. I'm going to journal every night. I'm going to write a whole journal. Maybe instead of doing that, you just write one sentence about how your day was. Hey, just for the first week, for the first month, I'm just going to write one sentence to talk about how great my day was. And then let that go into 2 sentences. Then let that get into a half a page. And then let that move on into whatever that needs to be for you. But one of the things, and it's always fun in my business, we have a lot of entrepreneurs and independent contractors in the world that I live in. And we'll ask them to write out every year a new business plan. And it's without fail happens so much, I can't even tell you, where they will come in and they will hand a business plan over. And they might have done, let's just say, $5 million in production the previous year. And then they're writing a $25 million plan the next year. And though you don't want to squash anybody's dreams, and I'm not saying it can't be done. However, I know based on the habit they have from who they were to who they've said they want to be, to changing all of those behavior patterns is really great in theory, but in reality, they haven't proven to themselves they can do it. And so I would say to that $5 million producer, let's put 7 million on, let's put 8 million. And then we can readjust that goal quarter by quarter if you're surpassing that goal. Right? Don't allow yourself to get so excited that you're writing a plan for yourself next year and you do it in a manner that puts so much pressure on you that you give up. Because if it's too big, it's too much. And if it's too much, it's going to start nagging you out. And it's going to start going, man, this is really counterproductive. I had these great goals and these great ideas, but in the end of the day, I can't accomplish it because my skills aren't there. My habits aren't there. Substitute with a productive habit. Replace like time you spend in social media, right? Scrolling on social media, looking at Facebook, and doing all of those things that really don't serve you. And replace that with things like reading more books, listening to more podcasts, spend more time exercising, even go for a walk. Social media and all this other stuff doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. Now, again, you're on a social media site here watching this. And I think if you're educating yourself, but I got to be honest with you, it's absolutely crazy and disgusting to watch how many people scroll through these social media things. It's numbing to the brain. Is it a tool that can be useful? Yes. But the question is, how much are you getting out of it? How is any of that bettering your life? You do know that through social media, hardly anything that you see in these things are true, right? They're how people want you to see them, but is that the reality of the truth, right? Can we stand up to ourselves and go, what is our truth? And what do I really believe that this is truthful, what I'm seeing? I heard something somewhat recently, maybe the last few weeks, and it talked about 50% of what you see on social media is exaggerated and untruthful. And the other 50% of it is true. Now, I don't know how true that statistic is, but I thought that's interesting. So half the stuff you're reading is really made up and is untruthful, but yet it's occupying your time. Where else could you spend some really great time doing something more productive, like reading, listening to podcasts that educate you, walking, exercising, spend time with friends and family, something more, what they say, the social media thing is really kind of an unsocial thing. People just sit there within themselves, looking at how somebody else lives their life. I just think that life's way too important to be spending it all on social media. Next thing is delay the urge. When you feel the bad habit coming, like when you feel that, I really want to do that. I really want to do this. This actually worked for me last night when I was researching to this talk, thinking about the urges, right? That you have, things that you want. Like if you're on a diet, for example, or you don't want to eat sugar. This was my case recently, where it says, wait 2 to 5 minutes before acting upon that. Because you'll have this thought that goes on inside your brain, and you'll actually really think like, I really want that. But if you just wait like 2 to 5 minutes, and if you choose then to have it, great. But what you're going to find, and I'm not saying you should in 2 to 5 minutes either. I would say fight the urge, but I've given into that too. But what I tried this, and it actually worked pretty well for me. I have to be honest with you. My thought at the time was a thought at the time, and then I distracted myself a few minutes later, and then I never even thought about it again. It's weird. So give yourself a little bit of time before you make a decision to act on something that you're trying to change. All right, and understand that you're not going to make it 100%. 100% of the time, you're not going to be successful. So what I want to focus on right now is, what level of success should I have in any act? And so I read a book recently, and it talked about trying not to beat yourself up or your employees or your staff based on accomplishing X percentage. And that X percentage was 80%. So it's the 80% rule. And it says, don't aim for perfection, but be consistent with the 80% of the time that you're successful. So if you work on 80% of the time, you're always going to set a goal for yourself that probably once you get the 80% of success of doing it, your next goal, you're going to raise that up. And if you get 80% of that, then you're more than 100% on what you originally set. And you work 80% of the next time or the next year or the next task, you're going to be 100% better than you were the last time. Don't focus fully on accomplishing everything by 100%. It's okay. 75, 85% is perfectly fine. If you can win this game 75% of the time, if you're normally not showing up on time at work, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're showing up on time, great. But there's going to be days where you're not going to show up on time. There's going to be days where you allow yourself to give in to who you were while you're changing the habits of who you want to be. Okay. So focus a lot on who you want to be, but don't put too much pressure on yourself if you fall short. Try to hit it 75, 85% of the time. And man, oh man, are you going to be like a rocket ship launching? Okay. We talked about using rewards, right? Give yourself a small reward and large reward. So we a little bit in the fact that anything you do, if you got it done 80%, reward yourself. Give yourself a break, right? You're working on following through on making good new habits. And by beating yourself up all the time and not feeling the joy of all the hard work that you're doing, man, don't do that to yourself, because by doing that to yourself, what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a defeated moment. I can't even tell you, just working with, again, I get to work with entrepreneurs every single day, and it's fun to watch them have a little success, a little bit. Let's just call it 30%. And then either they're celebrating too soon or they're not celebrating at all if they have a high level of success. So there is a balance between making sure that as you change the habit, that you're actually changing the habit and rewarding yourself, but don't reward yourself too soon. So it's fun, and it's like a train wreck, actually, to be honest with you, watching kind of what happens around here and how most people behave. They're fully responsible. They as a business owner, right? They're getting into business. They're creating new habits. They're becoming an entrepreneur. No one's telling them what to do or how to do it or anything like that. And then the challenge with all that is how do they become successful? You can't be who you were to get to where you want to go. You got to actually change who you are to get to where you want to go. So we have to really work on building momentum, right? Keep working and stacking little wins to build up momentum. So focus on one habit at a time. Don't try to have 5 habits. So if you're writing a business plan, you're like, well, I'm going to change these 5 things. Perfectly fine. Change those 5 things. But allow yourself to work on one thing at a time. So focus on one habit, change one thing, right? If it's, hey, I just want to be consistent going to the gym, not stacking. What am I doing? I'm here. I'm going to go add 5 other things. Why don't we just work on being consistent to go to the gym? If you're like, hey, listen, I just want to lose some weight. Let's work on today. Hey, today I'm just going to do this. I remember, it's kind of an interesting story. I remember a few years back, I was training to do an Ironman, and I decided that I was going to become a vegan. And I did, by the way. I did it for 10 months. I did it for 3 years, but I took a little break in between training for triathlons, which my wife and I did for many years. And so, but I would decide I was going to become a vegan. Why? In case you guys have never seen those athletes, they're small. They're really small. Most of them are littler people, I should say. I'm not. And so I thought, man, I got to get lighter. I got to get lighter on the bike. I got to get lighter for the run. I got to be better in the pool. And so I just wanted to be a smaller person. And so in talking with my triathlon coach and trainer at that time, I decided to be a vegan. I'm not sure he was a full supporter of that, but he supported me, and he talked me through it, and here we are. But so I lost a bunch of weight, by the way. It was great, and I felt great. And if you're considering vegan or vegetarianism, it was awesome. However, that being neither here nor there, I just said to myself, I'm going to do it for one day. Just one day. I'm just going to do it today. And then tomorrow I'll renegotiate with myself if I have to. So I did it one day. I felt pretty good. Then I did it the next day, and I felt pretty good. Now I'm like, hey, I'm 2 days in. If I did it 2 days, I can do it 3 days. I went for 10 months and didn't eat any animal products. And it was amazing, by the way. Really loved it. But I also like meat, so I went back to it. Is my point. I didn't fully stay away from it. But I guess my point is don't overdo a task. Take a small little bit at a time and make a small little difference every single day. Meet people that do it. Hang out with a community. Surround yourself with people who will encourage you, not discourage you, but encourage you. The good thing about being a vegan at that time was my wife was a vegan, so it was really easy, right? I mean, I used to fight just to get meat in my home because my wife didn't really, wasn't a supporter of it at the time. And still it does not eat meat. Now she's a vegetarian, not a vegan. But anyways, I surrounded myself with that, and it made it easier. If I had somebody at home that was not, that was a big time meat eater, I would have really struggled. So make sure that you find people that have common goals and that fully support you in the behavior and in the actions that you're getting ready to take. Because without the right people in your corner, good Lordy, is it really difficult, right? It's like trying to quit smoking or something and all your friends smoke, right? Or quit drinking and all your friends drink, or quit partying but everybody was a partier, right? And so you're like going, well, man, how does this all work out? Get new friends. I remember when I was building my companies and most of my friends weren't doing that, and I had to go find new friends. And it doesn't mean that I didn't keep them as friends, but I just started hanging out with people that were more in line with what I was doing, right? Let's get into the kind of the mindset motivational side of this, right? You have to build willpower or build a willpower routine, and you have to reset yourself, right? You have to totally reset yourself. You have to look at this and say, how do I develop better self-control? How do I continue to keep working on being different, right? Sometimes not going out and partying at night. Sometimes it's not drinking because you have to go to bed early. Sometimes it's eating right. See, it's really interesting, is success doesn't just have one thing in line. It has multiple things in line. And so you have to ask yourself, where do I want to be successful in? I want to be successful in my business. Well, if I have to be successful in my business, what does that look like? Well, I guess I'm going to get the best results if I'm there on time and stay consistent. Well, if you're there on time and you stay consistent, then you can't stay out partying all night long and then get up in the morning and be fully aware and present. If you're eating poorly and your energy level is low, you're going to have to change that. So you're going to have to get a little bit more sleep. You're going to have to get a few more friends, different kind of friends, I should say. And then you have to focus in on what's the most important thing, because if changing your life is more important, you need to build on all of those habits. What I have found is most successful people have really successful habits all the way around. They're not just financially successful, business successful, and then they're out of shape. Most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that are in the gym at 4 a.m. working out. When I go into the gym at 4:30 in the morning, there's business owners in there, most likely, okay? Because that's how we think, is being successful every single day. And whatever we do, how we dress, our clothes, our approach, our attitude, our expectation, everything, okay? And then it's okay, and as we were talking about earlier, reflect and reward. We have to reflect on what we're doing each week and then ask ourselves what worked. Did this really work for me? Is this still truly where I'm fully committed? Am I committed in this process? Do I feel good about what I'm doing, even though I know it's challenging? What didn't I like? What didn't work? What do I have to change to be better? See, this is kind of like a sliding scale at some level, because you're going to have high levels of expectation for yourself. And yet at the same time, you're going to run across things that aren't going to work for you. So are you working on changing? Hey, listen, I had this thought last week, didn't quite turn out like I had hoped. It really wasn't what I envisioned, and I realized that I don't really want that. It's okay. Change that. You're not stuck to any decision you make. They're your decisions. See, here's what's awesome is you actually get to make the decision of how your life turns out. Don't do what anybody else is doing. Do what you're doing. Don't worry what someone else does. It doesn't matter what time I go to the gym. It doesn't matter what time I get to work. It doesn't matter what time I go home. It doesn't matter what I do on Saturday or Sunday. It doesn't matter. Anything doesn't matter. The only thing it matters to is me. That shouldn't matter to you. What is it that you want out of your life, and what habits do you need to change? And then evaluating those every week and saying that worked for me or that did not work for me. This has been a fun podcast and a lot that I'm passionate about in here, because we're always talking through these kinds of podcasts about how do we stay consistent with growth? How do we continue to identify what the problem is? How do we then address the issue? How do we look at that issue and say, how is it affecting my life by continuing to behave this way? How do I make a small change to start working towards that change? How do I continue to keep rewarding myself through the process when small changes do happen? Not having a high level of expectation of accomplishing it by 100%, though that would be fine, but alleviating some pressure on yourself that if you hit it 75 to 85% of the time, you're a winner. And so I hope everybody found value in this conversation today. Thank you for listening to it. If you liked it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to continue to keep bringing these little messages to me below and let me know how I can serve bringing good information to you. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Success is Not Convenient. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.